Welcome to the next edition of Unscripted and Unstoppable. I am your host, Laureen Quick. This month, we are exploring adventure as orientation, not adventure as doing more, but as learning how to listen differently. Midlife does not always arrive announced with bells and whistles. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet restlessness, a longing for friendship, for companionship, a sense that you don't want to carry everything alone anymore. And today's conversation is about that call. Not the call to reinvent yourself, but the call to reconnect to your body, to other people, to the out of doors, to a way of living that feels shared rather than solitary. In this episode, I am joined by Nechumah Getz, the founder of Better Outside Together. And together, we are going to explore midlife as a second spring, a season that comes alive not through individual fulfillment and optimization, but really rather through community, through shared movement, and through more time in nature. This is a conversation about belonging, about nervous system steadiness, about finding your way back, not by pushing forward alone, but by walking alongside others. Welcome. I am so glad you are all here. Let's begin. Nechumah, I'm just going to jump right in and ask my first question to get us started. Midlife can feel surprisingly isolating. What have you noticed about the moment when women realize they don't want to navigate this season of life alone anymore?
Lauren, it's rarely one big dramatic moment. It's usually kind of like a final straw after a long time of trying to hold everything together. A lot of women have been running on fumes for months, sometimes years, managing careers, families, aging parents, and relationships. And then all of a sudden, perimenopause or menopause hits them, and the hormones start shifting, and it's like, what happened? And everything just starts getting really up into full volume. At some
Mhm.
point, women just say, I can't take this anymore. And that's actually when something beautiful happens. She starts paying attention to herself, maybe for the first time in real life.
Mhm.
And I think there's this influencer that just popped up on my Facebook one day who I love, and now, I follow her a lot. Her name is Melanie Sanders, and she captured it beautifully. She created this club called We Do Not Care. And she started as a joke during menopause, just sharing things she didn't care about. Like one day she got on camera and she's like, I can't find a real bra. And so she goes, I'm just wearing a sports bra that's a little small and everything's hanging out on one side. And she goes, I don't care anymore. And then she invited women in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause to share what they no longer care about. And the comments exploded. It became a movement. And it was because women were really starving for permission to be honest. And that's the moment I see over and over again. When women get vulnerable, others also do. And I'm always the first to get vulnerable in a room because that creates real community. And women don't want to go through this alone, but they need someone else to go first and give them that permission.
And so it's really that's an amazing story around this woman. I'll have to look her up because I had not heard of her.
She's
Um,
hilarious.
I think so. But what's really interesting to me is it's like in her own vulnerability, when she probably felt isolated and alone, she shared something, and that created community,
Yes.
which inspired all kinds of women all around the world probably to take a breath and say, I don't care either. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you want to have for dinner. I don't care anymore. I'm just doing what I want,
Yes.
what
Yeah,
makes sense to me. Yeah, but it's kind of interesting to me. It's like this relationship between the individual and the community. It was the community building that empowers us.
definitely. And now all over Facebook, everywhere, there's women saying, posting their own I don't care moments.
I don't care moment. I love it.
Yeah.
So, you know, does that mean that community really it's not just meaningful to us, but it's essential in our midlife?
It definitely is. And a lot of people intellectually, a lot of women intellectually know that connection's good for them, but they don't really realize the science about how actually good it is. And I mean the science physically. So there's really some fascinating research that's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. It's been
Mhm.
running for over 85 years, making it one of the longest studies on human happiness ever conducted. And that study found that social connection is the single greatest predictor of health and longevity. Not
Mhm.
diet, not exercise, but connection. And here's what's really important. For women, specifically in midlife, being meaningfully connected to others was found to be more important for their health than their cholesterol levels, more important than their IQ levels. Really, that's pretty impressive, don't you think?
Yeah, I have also been exposed to some of that research and have been dumbstruck by it. Because I
Yeah.
think it says it's not only just the friendship that you have, but it's
Hmm.
actually the day-to-day interactions and connections you have. It could be with the person checking you out at the grocery store. It could be the person who is mowing your lawn, or even your
Hmm.
neighbor who just comes over to borrow that cup of sugar or whatever. So it doesn't have to be these huge, intimate connections we have with people, although that's certainly part of it, but it's how much do we actually connect with other people in our world that keeps us healthy and
And
with vitality.
right, and the part more into the study, what you said is very true. But they
Yeah.
also found that when you're in your 50s, the quality of your relationships in your 50s is the best predictor of who's going to be healthy and thriving at age 80. And so we all talk about that we want to live long, but we really don't want to live long if our quality of life is negative.
Mhm.
And so they found that quality of connection protects against heart disease and cognitive decline, which is pretty important. And so when people in midlife tell me that they don't have time for community or they wish they could, but they can't because of something, I gently pushed back and I said, really, I think it's all about priorities. And the science is telling us that this is needs to be a priority. It's not kind of a nice to have. It's not a luxury. It's literally one of the most important things you can do for your health during this season of midlife. And that changes everything about how we should be showing up for each other.
It's almost like my life depends on it.
Exactly. Totally.
Definitely my quality of life depends on it. Uh,
That's what it is. Yeah.
but it is also joy, right? We get great joy from the friendships that we have. At least that's been my experience in life. And so why wouldn't we want more?
Yes.
Yeah. But sometimes it's hard because friendships are messy, relationships are messy, people are messy. And so it's not always easy navigating through all of the work that it takes to have a friendship, but
Hmm.
it's obviously worth it.
Yes.
Exactly. So that's really cool. I'm loving that. Um, we are often taught in the world we live in that we are responsible for our own health and well-being. What shifts when we start to think about the importance of connection, and that our health and wellness could potentially be practiced collectively rather than privately in the quietness of our homes?
So this is something that I love to talk about because I think a lot of women struggle with a lot of people in general, not women, but specifically, but people struggle to create healthy habits on their own. And we've been sold that wellness is a solo journey, like download the app. And so the app is supposed to be your friend or something. Follow the plan, track your steps, but you're still doing it alone. You have like technology, and this really goes to another theme of that AI is becoming people's friends now, right? Technology is your friend. But for some people, that doesn't really work. And a lot of women, especially in midlife, you do it for a little bit, but then it kind of dies out. But when I see people go outside together, it doesn't feel like a chore anymore. Nobody's dragging themselves out of bed thinking, ugh, I have to do this. They're excited. They're texting each other the night before, and maybe they're saying, ugh, I don't want to have to wait up. But hey, I'm so excited to hear whatever we were talking about last week, what's happening now, or what happened then, or I can't wait to tell you about, something. And they show up because they actually want to be there, not because some app is tracking them. And that's really the game changer when it becomes to building a habit because it sticks. And then there's
Mhm.
also the accountability. So, first, it's the joy, the fun we were talking about a few minutes ago. And then there's the actual accountability piece, but not in the way we're usually thinking about accountability. This time, it's not about checking your food diary or judging your progress. It's much more warmer than that because it's that if you don't show up, people are going to notice and they're going to reach out and they're going to say, hey, we missed you today. And that feeling of being missed, of mattering to a group, is really one of the most powerful motivators that I've ever seen. And you're also accountable to the other person. If there's only two people on that hike and you don't show up, then that person is hiking with just me. And so it's accountable. You keep each other accountable. And so that's really what's great about collectiveness.
And so when we do that within the context of a community, what
Hmm.
happens is there's a whole complex system of checks and balances that,
Yes.
if we even thought we weren't going to do it, we end up doing it anyway because people are counting on us. But then at
Hmm.
the same time, once we get there, we get all the benefits of being connected to other people, of moving our bodies and feeling good. And what I have also learned is the more I do that, the more that feels normal to me.
Yes.
And the more that feels normal to me when I'm not doing it, I don't feel like I'm quite right. So then I seek it out again. So it becomes habit forming, maybe is a good way of saying that, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's also, I do Pilates, I've done yoga, and they're kind of communal, but kind of not. And so I I like, going to the classes because you have an instructor, but what I miss is that there's really not a lot of talking to people time. So you don't get that processing, that community feeling afterwards. And not, I mean, some yoga and Pilates you do, but what I personally have found is people are running to work or they're running here or they're running there. And with hiking, the exercise and talking are the same. It's not so you're getting that sense of community while you're moving, as opposed to in yoga and Pilates, you move and then you talk, and so it's a little bit not as communal.
It's also, yeah, it's also interesting to me. When I was 60, I started hiking.
Hmm.
And I had hiked a lot and backpacked when I was young, but life got busy, children came, it was just too much. So
Hmm.
sort of stepped out of that for quite a long time, returned to it in my 60s. Never thought of myself as an outdoor kind of girl. That was not an identity I connected to. But
Hmm.
then over time, I joined groups, met women, we started hiking, and what evolves is not just relationships and connections, but also a sense of who you are.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm sure for every woman it will be slightly different, right? We're not all going to have the same identity, but I began to see myself as a hiker. Then I began to see myself as someone who likes adventure, as someone who challenges herself, who's as someone who's capable. So not just the identity, but the confidence came. But all of that happened in the context of friendships that supported me during this process of growth and change. Yeah.
Love that. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. So I'm like a walking commercial. for hiking, for hiking and hiking groups, right? Get out there, ladies, get out there. Um, so here's another question for you that I think actually is quite interesting. When you think about women and being in the out of doors, how does that experience change how they experience their bodies and themselves and even their nervous systems, particularly during perimenopause or menopause, if you can speak to that. But just really, how does that change how we relate and connect with our own bodies?
This is a really interesting topic. When women hike, it is a lot more than just getting your steps in. And I don't really think women realize it until they experience it for themselves.
Hmm.
As one of the most talked about parts of perimenopause and menopause is that the part of your brain that regulates body temperature becomes hypersensitive because your estrogen is fluctuating. And that's why women a lot of times have, hot flashes, which
Uh,
is one of the most talked about parts of menopause. But what's really fascinating is that nature actually acts as a natural stabilizer for that. And additionally, when we're outside, our brains shift into what is called soft fascination. It's more the state of gentle, effortless attention where your mind actually gets to rest. You're not staring at a screen, you're not running through your to-do list, you're just kind of present. And in that space, your nervous system starts to settle. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out on a hike, and I'm sure you know because you said you're a hiker. So you go out and something's weighing on your mind, and by the time you get back, you've kind of worked through it without even trying. And that's because your nervous system is relaxing. And research backs it up even more than what I just said. There's a shift in your body that you go from the fight or flight system to a more calm, rested state. And that directly reduces the intensity of hot flashes and cortisol spikes. And so you might not realize that hiking is helping your menopause system. And when you layer community on top of that, and you may have heard about blue zones. Have you heard about blue zones?
just
Which is
tell it in case someone's listening who doesn't know.
Yes, which are the places in the world where people live the longest. One of the consistent findings in blue zones is that the strong social circles are central to longevity. And they actually call community a longevity superpower. So when you combine nature and what that's doing to your hormones and your nervous system and community, you're not just adding two benefits together, you're really multiplying them. And that's what I witness every single time I get a group of women together outside. I can see that happening.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I do know for me, I'm long past menopause, but I do notice it's very interesting to me. I will be walking on a hike, and then suddenly I will catch myself taking what I call like a second breath, where I kind of go, and
Hmm.
it's like it's a point of relaxation for me. It's like I have hit it. I have let the tensions all go from whatever I brought with me on the trail. And it's like I do a double breath. It just comes naturally. I look for it now because I've begun to recognize it's a signal to me, oh, you are now relaxed.
Yes.
You have finally let it all go, and now the real fun begins. And usually it's a mile, half a mile into whatever I'm doing. I just take this double breath. It's kind of weird. But anyway,
Yeah,
I think that is nature doing its work.
it is.
And my body
It's,
listening and responding. Yeah.
yeah,
But I do find that fascinating that really, if you are suffering a lot from menopause or perimenopausal situation, you might want to consider just hiking, going out for some
yes.
long walks in nature and seeing if that alleviates some of the symptoms that you're experiencing. Um, yeah, that's to me, that's fascinating. Plus, of course, take a girlfriend and you can talk more about it. As
Exactly. And all of that calms the nervous system, and calming the nervous system is what reduces some of those symptoms.
wonderful, wonderful. So you emphasize being outside together. So this is why you've developed this organization. What happens to us when we are in nature together collectively? Besides what you've just talked about, is there more?
There is, and it's really fascinating. there's actually a physiological phenomenon called co-regulation. And I didn't know that it actually had a name. I just have felt it being a lifelong hiker. But after doing research, I learned about that it does that what I thought was just something natural is something researchers have found that when a group of women walks together, their heart rates and breathing patterns start to synchronize. So I grew up with many sisters, and I have four sisters, and we had, our menstrual cycles together.
Mhm.
And they talk about that happening a lot, that, in college or a group of women usually have their menstrual cycles together. Well, it also happens when women are together walking, and it's about their heart rates and their breathing patterns. So if one woman in the group, so as we just talked about previously, nature helps you calm down. It helps your nervous system calm. And as one woman in the group is calm and grounded, her nervous system literally pulls others into that same form of safety. And so you don't do anything. You don't even talk about it. Your body just starts naturally responding to the community, to the others around you. And you if your body's always in, overdrive, which seems to happen a lot in menopause, perimenopause, this is incredibly PowerPoint. I mean, incredibly powerful that happens. And there's another thing that happens a lot that doesn't get talked about, and it's about when a woman starts and stops to catch their breath and she's maybe sweating through her shirt and she needs a minute. Nobody flinches, nobody judges. You can see women just navigate that with like grace, humor, zero apology. They're just like, this is me, I need to take a moment. And she doesn't apologize. And other people who may be a little bit more shy, they also are like, hey, I'm having the same problem. We all go through this. It's not just me. And it's like that de-shaming that happens naturally in communities and also in outdoors. That's really one of the most healing things that one can experience during this season of life. Understanding you're not broken, we're just adapting. And it's so much easier to believe that when you're surrounded by other women. And that's why when I started my backpacking career, not career, but my backpacking journey, I started it on a women only backpacking group because
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to have men and for me to feel like I can't do it. They're stronger than me. And the power of women, I mean, people were helpful when I didn't know how to pitch my tent, even though I practiced at home. And other women who were like Girl Scout mothers just jumped in and helped me. And nobody was judged. It was so judge free. And I just loved that.
Yeah, I agree. This is just making me want to get out on the trail right now. Like
I'll take you.
yeah, we're going. I will tell you that we are definitely going. Um, so my last question. Many women are have always been rewarded. All of us actually have been rewarded, at least in the US culture, all around the whole idea of being independent and self-sufficient and doing it your way on your own. How does participating in a community invite a different definition of strength and even success?
So that is really such a great question. And it really hits home for so many women and for me specifically. So many of us were really taught that strength meant doing it on your own, not asking for help, figuring it out. But in midlife, I'm redefining that. And I'm hoping to redefine that for others. When I when I work, what I work with is showing up is actually when people show up in the community, it's one of the bravest things that you can do. It requires you to be seen. And for women who've spent decades being the capable ones, the reliable ones, the one who holds everything together, sometimes it's kind of hard to be on the receiving end of support, or to say, hey, I'm struggling with this. And I know this firsthand because my husband was in the military for 30 years and he was deployed on an aircraft carrier and I was single parenting it. And, things broke down in the house or once I slammed my hand in the car door and I needed someone to take me to the ER. And, I had to constantly ask for help. And I really felt like a failure because I didn't feel like anyone else needed as much help as I did.
Yeah.
But here's the thing when you share your story, someone else says, "Oh my gosh, that's me too." And that's kind of, what's happening in the community. So whether it's about menopause, like you're also feeling this way in menopause, or you're having these symptoms, especially some of these intimate symptoms, when you talk about the way sex has changed in menopause, people don't want to talk about that. You talk about dealing with your aging parents, you feel about feelings in your career pivot. Part of why I started it was this new organization is I actually got laid off twice in 2 years. And when I say that unapologetically, unembarrassed about this is what happened to me, you know, it releases it for others. And people really are just human, and that's its own kind of strength. When women accept who they are, and there's something really powerful about also recognizing that your experience matters to someone else. So you may not realize the impact your words have on the woman that you're talking to. And honestly, that's really important. So deciding to do something for yourself, to show up, to take care of your body, to invest in your own joy, that's strength. It's not being selfish, it's survival. And when you feel generally supported, I think there's really nothing you can't handle. So I'm really excited when women show up for themselves.
We are like, we could be twins. We are so aligned in how we think of things. Nihama, tell us just a little bit more about this organization that you've just started, because I'm sure all of my listeners, the viewers, are wondering, what organization is this, and how do I get involved? But could you share just a little bit?
Sure. So this organization is really about developing community for women outdoors. And so it's about having the ability to go on hikes on a regular basis. So right now I'm starting where I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and it's for women to go on, once or twice a week, just a 2-hour hike with other women. And as opposed to some clubs where it's an all-day hike, this one you can get as part of your regular week. And so you sign up for a membership or a pack of hikes, and I'm running about 5 hikes a week. And then I'm also doing community events. I'm also incorporating a backpacking journey, and this is also for those that don't live in the DC area. And so it's more of a guided experience. When I learned to backpack, I signed up for a trip and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had to be self-sufficient and go to REI like 1,000 times and be like, okay, I bought this backpack. Now the backpack doesn't feel good. It hurts. And what about the shoes? What about this? And I would, sometimes you find people at REI who are helpful, other times not. I would drive around to all the REIs in my region to find the best people to help me. And I was scared. And then I get on the trip and I was already, you said you started hiking in your 60s. Well, I was, in my very late, almost 50s. And I was like, everyone on the trip's going to be younger. I'm going to be the slowest person. And so my goal is to make it achievable for people in midlife. I want to guide you. Here's the gear. Let's go to REI together. And if we're virtual, if you're not in the DC area, I want to hold, I'm going to be holding virtual sessions, creating you know, an accountability. You have to, if you want a backpack, you have to train. You can't one day just show up. So providing, partnering with a personal trainer to provide a plan, and then I'm going to run accessible backpacking programs. So some of the programs I've looked at, you have to backpack 10 miles a day, which is harder for me. I have a lot of aches and pains. I don't know. And so really I'm more into, let's do 4 the first day, 5 or 6 the second. You can still have an amazing backpacking experience without killing yourself. And I'm not about the miles. I'm all about the experience. And so that anyone can join.
Good. Good. Well, we will definitely share links to your website so people can check that out if they are so interested. Um,
Thank you.
and you are right about the backpacking. Start small. When I returned back to it in my 60s, the first one was just one night, I think. And then the next one was 3 nights and 4 days. And this summer, I'm going to try to do something a little bit longer than that. But take it slow and enjoy.
Yes.
The whole point is to enjoy. So why create something that you're going to struggle and feel not so good about yourself and never want to do it again, kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's
Mhm.
thoughtful planning is important when you get into that process. That is wonderful. Good.
Great.
Well, I want to thank you, Nahama, for this thoughtful and very grounding conversation today, and for the work that you are doing to bring women together in community, moving and in the out of doors. Obviously, from everything we've talked about today, that there is such a huge benefit, not just to the quality of our life, but to our health and well-being as well. For those of you listening or watching today, thank you for spending this time with us. I don't take that lightly. I know your time is important. And the fact that you're here reflecting and considering what is stirring in your own life matters. It matters to me. You will find links, as I mentioned, to Nehama's work in the show notes if you would like to explore more and connect with her. If this conversation has resonated with you, I would also invite you to take a next step and join the Brilliant Beyond 50 community that I host through my newsletter each week. You can find links to sign up for that as well in the show notes. If you also know a woman who might benefit from this conversation, please feel free to share it with her, invite her to join us. These are conversations that I believe we need to have more openly and more frequently within the community of women 50 and older. It's not just about living your own chapter all by yourself, but actually joining together in community, in connection to make your life fun, exciting, and to live with vitality. So until next time, please stay curious and please get out there and enjoy the beautiful out of doors and let us know how that experience has been for you. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for
Thank you,
listening.
Lauren. This has been wonderful.
You are so welcome.